Yo, what is up? It is me. It's Key. I'm in the building, y'all. I got my man Jake. We're gonna recap tonight's game against the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning and defending champions, and then it's the Houston Texans. Jake, what is going on, man?
What's going on, Key? Glad to be here in the building with you, man. What football's back. Football is officially back, and we could not be even more excited about this year and this season. Lots and lots of questions, lots of speculations, but I'm excited. I'm excited for what the season's about to bring on.
Yeah, but like I get the as soon as the Super Bowl's over, I get depressed. I go in like a 4 month depression. I'm just like, ain't no football. I gotta watch baseball. But none of that happened this year because of this whole pandemic. Everything is all screwed up.
Hmm.
So, but I'm glad football's back. Let's talk about this game. So of course, the both teams come out. The Texans did stay in the locker room for the national anthem. But there was some boos, which I wasn't too sure about. Yes, Kansas City can have fans in their stands. So they're allowed to have fans, not at full capacity, but there still was fans there. How did you feel about that whole thing?
So, of course, before the season even started, there were so many speculations about how this season was going to start and how it was going to carry on all through this. You have to think about all the way to the beginning. I mean, the fact that, you know, lots of players, not even just in the NFL, but athletes from all major sport, all were taking a stand of what had happened at the very beginning with George Floyd. There was all of this speculation that was going on. NFL players, of course, took their stands. They all ended up marching in their movements. Then, of course, it just kept carrying on to the point where now we started having speculations about Colin Kaepernick. And there was just all of these news, all of these things that were just popping up all left and right. So, coming into now the season officially starting, number one, with what the Houston Texans did about staying in the locker rooms when the national anthem was going on, there's a part of me that I'll be honest, it doesn't sit well with me with one of those reasons. Because number one, you're here to represent your organization. And the fact that staying in a locker room to me doesn't make so much sense because fans are there to watch you, fans are there to see you, and you're there as a public face. And those have always been one of those things that have kind of bothered me personally, but I won't get too much into detail of it. But just the thing that I've like, just stand out and show out. We've seen this happen years ago with the Pittsburgh Steelers when Mike Tomlin made that decision that the team was going to stay in. But Alejandro Villanueva, he was in the toughest position of his life. The fact that this is a player, this is not just an NFL player.
He was the military.
Yeah, he was a military vet. So it's really hard to pull somebody away from that, knowing that he devoted his life to serving his country and to protecting the freedoms that still stand today. So I do believe, though, however, when it came to the points of unity, I felt like that was wrong of the fans, first off, to be booing during that time. Because this is an important matter for one side. I understand that. But at the same time, like any sports, baseball, basketball, hockey, football, there are certain things there that unify us as a country. And those are one of those things. Without sports, there's nothing that, inside us we can get excited about and neither feel like ourselves. So having this happen, I think, is kind of ridiculous. And I think this is something that, of course, let me be honest, this is going to be a story that's going to talk about for like the next couple of days, probably until Sunday comes around the corner.
Right.
Then that's when we have the full speculation. Everybody's all on the hot seat, and we're not exactly sure how that's going to pan out. But there's two things. One, I don't really stand too much about teams staying in locker rooms, especially when the national anthem comes on. But two, I don't think it's right for the fans themselves to be booing, especially in times of unity and something that, the season just started. And
Definitely.
we're already kind of going through some of this stuff.
Definitely, I agree with that. AJ Martin, thank you for coming in with us and hanging out. Damian Estrada, always thank you for hanging out. Texas going 0-16. They might win some games. I don't know about 0-16.
Yeah, I don't know about
But
that.
this is a time when the nation is, should be unified and everything else. You shouldn't be against one another. Yeah, I didn't agree with them booze. Like I said, that's another topic for another day. I'm sure we're gonna be hearing this all week up until Sunday. But let's get into this game. Texans, of course, Deshaun Watson gets his big contract,
Hmm.
and we also know Patrick Mahomes. He is the half billion dollar man. He's going to get his plays and his touches.
Yeah.
KC started off. I think KC started off a little slow to me in the beginning, but it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Hmm.
They're going to come out. But surprisingly, Houston did come out first, so I was surprised.
Right.
David Johnson actually doesn't look half bad.
Hmm.
David Johnson don't look half bad. He did have 11 carries for 77 yards, and he had that touchdown.
Hmm.
I think if they give him more carries, he'll be okay. But that offensive line still hasn't addressed that yet. They're gonna
No.
kill. They're gonna kill Watson. They're gonna kill him back there.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing situation. I'm telling you, this is the Indianapolis Colts 2.0. The fact that when Andrew Luck came into the scene, um, this offensive line was not legitimate enough to protecting their franchise quarterback, which is why Andrew Luck had been hit, he had been injured, and is also the main reason why that he had retired in the first place. The fact that he was taking that many blows and that many hits is kind of just the thing that sometimes determines whether or not your franchise quarterback is going to play the same. You know this personally, the fact with, Carson Wentz in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Houston still has not addressed their problem at offensive line, you clearly know that. Which is why, I'll be honest, is part of the reason that Bill O'Brien gave the contract that he gave to Deshaun Watson. And to me, I feel like is Deshaun sitting on retirement money because the way that this looks, he's getting paid X amount for the fact that if he gets hurt and he tears another ACL, there's your retirement money right there. Perfect insurance policy. But I just feel like this is Indianapolis Colts 2.0. When the fact that they couldn't even do this for Andrew Luck until very late, I have a feeling right now that Houston is on the hot seat with that. But David Johnson, okay, honestly, I mean, he looked really good, so that's a start. But you have to understand, it is week one.
Right.
Sometimes there are certain things that we don't expect in the first week. Let's give it about 3-4 weeks of how David Johnson produces with this offensive line. Because if this becomes the same production, maybe it might turn people's heads as to how they felt about him. But knowing how this offensive line produces, it's not going to look good for Houston. But I will say this: I mean, um, Kansas City themselves looked really good. I mean, they did have a slow start, which is kind of to me is shaking the rust off. I get it because there were no preseasons, there were no OTAs. So this is probably going to be one of the most interesting seasons that we'll ever come across. I think in NFL history. And so, seeing how slow the Kansas City started, pretty good. Eventually, they were going to end up kicking it into high gear, and that's specifically how they do that. I mean, you're talking about the billion-dollar quarterback now. You're talking about the high-paid quarterback doing exactly just ridiculous things that he does. But not only that, you had Travis Kelce started that off. He got paid his contract. How about another guy that got paid his contract? Tyreek Hill. So you're getting all three paid players their contracts, and they're living up to it already in week one. I know it's a start. I know it's an exciting thing, but this is going to be fit to be interesting. And let's talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, the kid really came out playing. And I know a lot of people had speculations about him, too, before the season started with the draft.
Right.
I had some, too, but I feel like he has become the sleeper pick in the draft. Nobody even wanted. Nobody even dared to make a move to pick him up. And now Kansas City really looks like a dangerous offense. I mean, they hit themselves hard when Kareem Hunt ended up his antics and everything else. But I think they really fit the bill once the second Edwards-Helaire came in, and he had a really good game. And congratulations to him with his first NFL touchdown. It's official now, so I think this will be interesting to see how he favors throughout the whole season.
David Estrada just said he don't think sports happening is a good thing, especially when we are trying to fix this world for a better future. We don't need any distractions like sports if we are trying to fix the justice system. I get it, but while the politics and everybody else is fighting over that, why not take our mind off things and have some sports?
Right.
Just imagine if nothing was happening. Just,
like Key,
it would
would
drive you
even
crazy.
we would not be acting like the same people. And to be honest, we'd all be probably acting like robots. We would be acting like robots, have nothing to talk about, and then it's just nonstop awkward moments every time. Sports unifies us. This is not something that is a complete distraction. If you think of it that way, listen, one thing that'll distract us is it'll distract us from the filibustering of our politics. That's the one thing that I look at it. Okay. And I truly think that having sports around, I mean, you know this better than anybody. What is tomorrow, Key? Tomorrow marks, was it 19 years? 19 years since 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the one thing that brought us all together? Sports. Baseball.
Especially that Yankees game. That was like a powerful method. And it was in New York.
Or even the fact that Mayor Giuliani came on public and he told everybody, I'm going to a Met game. That spoke a lot of volumes. The fact that the former governor of New York would come out and say that. Like that is the one thing that really moved a lot of people. And even though I understand times of uncertainties, times of just, unsettled business, okay, sports itself unifies us and it also gives us positivity. You take that away, like we don't feel normal as a country whatsoever. And I'll be honest with you, and hopefully they don't do this either. But can the kids live a little? Like, we've got Halloween coming up next month.
Right.
And if you're saying that we can't end up celebrating Halloween like we want to, that's just going to strip everybody of their dignities. I mean, I'll be honest with you. But hopefully, with this coming back, I mean, this will help. This will definitely help. And we know
Sean and Jamar, what is going on? Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We were just recapping the game here a little bit, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire was big. I knew he was going to be special. He was special in LSU. He did have 25 carries, 138 yards, and he had that touchdown. So he fits with Kansas City too. Since Damian Williams isn't playing, he fits their style. So and then you got the other Williams part there too. So that's a 1-2 combination. They got some good running backs over there in KC. Tyreek Hill did start off slow, but he did end up getting a touchdown. So he did have 5 receptions, 46 yards. But Sammy Watkins, anybody you put out there with Mahomes is going to do something. Demarcus Robinson was catching footballs. Nicole Hardman. Anywhere you put up, you don't know where they're going to throw to besides Tyreek Hill because they're going to double him. So Sammy Watkins was killing it. He had 7 catches, 82 yards in that touchdown. What do you think on the receiving core in KC?
So I think, honestly, any receiving core that comes into this Kansas City offense, I mean, you know this personally, especially with Andy Reid and how he kind of sets this together with his wide receiving core. I mean, it was kind of like how it originated in Philly. I mean, the fact that you had Terrell Owens and a bunch of other really good receivers to the point where you had Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin and a lot of these guys. So, in a sense, Andy Reid knows how to set his receiving core well. And here's the other thing, too. This is also where you have the icing on the cake, Travis Kelce. You also don't want to end up forgetting about that guy. The fact that he picks up exactly where he left off from the Super Bowl and getting a touchdown catch. I mean, the guy's solid. It's part of the reason why that he's one of the top tight ends in the league currently. but having this receiving core with Nicole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, and many others, um, it really just shows how many options that Patrick Mahomes can throw to, and not just for Tyreek Hill. Because I think he understands where the defense is shaped to try to double team a guy like Tyreek Hill. But let's be honest. I mean, the guy's got quick feet. I think it would be a hell of a challenge to really cover him all night long.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he'll pull some tricks off his sleeve. I mean, he's a really good route runner, but he's also really dangerous when it comes to his speed. And that's the one thing that, as they say, speed kills. That's where Tyreek Hill, he's known for. Um, but Patrick Mahomes, and like you mentioned about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, the fact that he's not only just a fast runner, but he's also somebody that can even run on the catch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we've watched in college and LSU, and especially in a couple of games. Joe Burrow threw to his one option as a screen, and he really took advantage of it. So I think coming into a system like Andy Reid's in Kansas City, I mean, he's the magician behind it. He's going to make every play possible where it's going to work. It's going to work for the better, where they're scoring touchdowns, they're getting first downs. That's just how aggressive that this offense really is. So, and having Patrick Mahomes as the catalyst to this offense really brings out the best in some of these wide receivers. And wide receivers we don't see coming, which is one of the funny things, because we talk about Travis Kelce, we talk about Tyreek Hill, and we sometimes talk about Sammy Watkins, but we never talk about Nicole Hartman. We never talk about Robinson, or any of these guys. And I think comes to show just the type of playbook and the type of offense that Andy Reid loves to run here in Kansas City.
Andy is a throwing coach. You've seen it when he was in Philly. He likes to throw. But Kansas City's defense wasn't all that bad either. I mean, they did get pressure on Deshaun Watson. They did sack him a couple of times tonight. But that offensive line for Houston it's horrible. It is terrible.
Yeah.
Um, if they want Deshaun to stay around, they're gonna have to address that, or your $1 million man is gonna be sitting on the bench at home.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he doesn't get injured, because Deshaun can't do it all by himself. That man was running for his life.
He was all over the place. And listen, I mean, Deshaun Watson can only do so much with his legs. I mean, this is the kind of thing that has scared me. The fact that he suffers an ACL tear the first time, and then not even sure how Houston was going to really fix their offensive line. But you're talking about a guy who's getting hit 200 times and almost getting sacked like just about the same amount as Kyler Murray did last year with Arizona, which is why I mentioned about Arizona, where they have to fix their offensive line. Because again, we get it. It's flashy. It's cool. The fact that quarterbacks are mobile and they can get out of any situation, but they can't do that 110% of the time on plays. Okay.
Right.
It's the reason why, too, Kansas City has a stable offensive line, because they realize that Patrick doesn't have to run most of the time. He only has to run when he senses danger. That's it. But most of the time, you got to ensure that he has a pocket for him to throw. And there were a couple of times in those plays, Kansas City had their pockets pretty much closed up and settled. And it was beautiful timing, and it was a perfect cushion for Patrick Mahomes to feel comfortable to make his throws. That is something that Houston really needs to work off of. And think about it. Some of the top tier offensive lines that I'm sure we'll look at on Sunday, but these offensive lines, these are the reason why that they protect their quarterbacks the way that they do. And if Houston doesn't figure this out at some point soon, you're going to see Andrew Luck 2.0 going to get banged up 200 more times, probably get sacked 50 times this season. And to the point, hate to say it, but if he may sustain another ACL injury. And then
That's
Bill O'Brien, what are you going to do from there?
Bill O'Brien definitely will be on the hot seat then if something happens to Sean after getting that big contract. Connor Burke,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us tonight. He's saying David Johnson actually had a silent showing with a horrible O line. He actually did. For once, Mahomes didn't run tonight at all. He had no
No.
rushing yards. He had no reason to.
Yeah.
He stood there in the pocket, threw his throws, and he just handed off the ball to Edwards Hilaire. Surprisingly, Will Fuller did have 8 receptions for 112 yards. So he had a good game overall. Didn't score a touchdown. The only touchdown scored was Jordan Atkins on the
Yeah.
receiving. Then they had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Deshaun took 4 sacks tonight. He can't be 4 to Mahomes is 1.
Yeah.
So Texans did get to Mahomes, but four sacks.
Yeah.
That's scary. It has
Yeah.
to be.
Oh yeah, and that's that's the scary thing, especially being a Houston Texan fan. I mean, that's one of the things that you all are holding your breath on because of the fact of the offensive line is just allowing guys like, again, another guy that got paid, Chris Jones. You're allowing guys like Chris Jones to bust through the line to get in and just sack the quarterback right where he stands. And same with this entire Kansas City front line. It's a scary thing for that. But this is the crazy thing. This is why I said about it. I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Watson left. If he
Right.
took his money's worth, left, all because of the fact that the offensive line never got fixed up, never got addressed, then there's your reason why, and there's your problem. It's the reason, and I'll be honest, this is probably the reason why that DeAndre Hopkins probably didn't even want to stay in Houston. And I wouldn't doubt Deshaun Watson would stay either because of this problem. And listen, going to one of them, Damian Estrada, Watson needs Hopkins bad. Well, here's the thing though. Even if he has DeAndre Hopkins, does Deshaun Watson still have time to throw? Like, I'll be honest, it's the same thing I even said about the Jets. Like, because I know Jets fans sometimes they had mixed emotions when it came to the wide receiver core, but you can't even just get the best top tier wide receiver in the draft knowing you don't have an offensive line that can't protect your franchise quarterback.
Exactly.
It's plain and simple. So it's the same thing that goes for Deshaun Watson at this point. And if they don't address this offensive line sooner than later, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good for them. And look, I think you and I already know the Colts are running this division. I'd be very surprised about how Tennessee is really going to pan out. But I think you're just going to see an absolute dumpster fire in Houston. I see it coming.
Connor Burke says it got to be a part of Watson's extension. That says if the O line isn't improved, he has the opportunity to opt out. Why not? This is my safety you're talking about. If I don't have anybody to protect me, how am I going to win these games for y'all? How am I going to throw to these receivers? Like, that's something they should have addressed in the draft, and they didn't.
Yeah. And it clearly shows how management has been ran for Houston. I mean, this is a team that, they've had good offensive players, but they could never address their offensive line correctly. They really couldn't. I mean, think about it. No matter who the quarterback was, whether it was Matt Schaub or, you had Deshaun Watson, but all these offensive players, I mean, again, they come and go. Andre Johnson was a great wide receiver in Houston. He came, he went. And then you have DeAndre Hopkins. He came, he went, great wide receiver. But that's the only thing. Offensive players, sometimes they come and go. But there may be reasons as to why. If they don't fix that offensive line, then there's part of your reason. And it's also part of the reason why I think Bill O'Brien honestly should just stick to coaching and not to general managing skills. I mean, that's just one of the things that he doesn't do well on.
Gridiron Bliss, thank you for coming and hanging with us. Houston looked off. Chiefs looked solid. Definitely did. It's like they didn't miss a beat. Now let's talk about this Texans defense. I mean, J.J. Watt, he's finally healthy. He's the heart of that defense.
Yeah.
They couldn't do nothing with Patrick Mahomes. There was that one drive that I think when they went down the field 91 yards, they could not stop the Chiefs at all.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Texans defense?
So my thought on the Texas defense, because look, I love J.J. Watt. I love all the amazing things that he does on the defensive side of the football. But here's also another thing too. I mean, here's what's crazy. Houston doesn't fix their offensive line, but yet they still had money to pay guys like Whitney Mercilus and Cunningham as well in their linebacking core, which is interesting to me. But then my biggest issue is their secondaries as well. And the fact that like the wide receivers, in Kansas City's offense, they find ways to get themselves open. And Houston, they didn't even have any secondaries that were really kind of playing to the position where they would shut down the Kansas City offense. And not to mention, too, that defensive front line, that offensive line was not going to allow them to get past to even touch Mahomes.
And they did get by once, but
they only got by once. But after all that, it's like, think about this. Hey, you get at least one hit, but then after that,
that's it.
No, that's it. You only get one opportunity, and that's it. And the fact that Kansas City's offensive line showed up tonight really fit the bill and really just kind of set the tone of what the rest of the NFL season is going to look like for them. But yeah, I mean, you talk about it. Houston's offense couldn't get it done, and the defense couldn't even touch Mahomes, at least after that one time. They just got quiet. It was like crickets at that point.
Right. Troxel, what's up? Thank you for coming in. Hit that like button, y'all.
Troxel, what's going on?
Damian Estrada says, who you really think is to blame for the Texans' struggle tonight, players or coaches? I'm going to say the coaching staff. Because y'all had all this opportunity to fix this offensive line, and y'all still didn't give no help for Deshaun Watson. Like, y'all seriously are going to kill him this whole season. The man is going to be sacked. It's going to be a record. Y'all have to fix this line. It has to go out for the coaches. The players are only doing what they can do.
The coaches in the front office staff are the only people that I kind of hold accountable of it. I mean, you're looking at Bill O'Brien as both, and the fact that his general managing skills clearly shows exactly where this ship is going to take Houston at this point, and they're going to look like an absolute tire fire at the end of this if they don't fix this up. And so, with this offensive line, look, they have money to pay guys like Deshaun Watson and even pay their two linebackers in the defensive position, but they don't even have enough money to spend to go and get probably a couple of good veterans of the offensive line that are still good enough to play and then address that in the draft. And so it's kind of ridiculous. And so that's the kind of thing that I think is really going to end up hurting Houston if they don't fix this problem. And that front office really needs to get themselves together, and they really need to come up with a plan. Because if you're just winging it and you have no plan whatsoever, Deshaun Watson's going to get hit 200 more times. He's probably going to end up getting sacked. He already had 4 tonight. So he's on pace for 50 sacks and maybe more. And that's the one problem that Houston is just not going to look good for them if they don't fix this.
Like, Randall Cobb came in. He was supposed to be the savior, I guess, for the Texans. He only had 2 catches, 23 yards. Brandon Cooks only had 2 catches, 20 yards. Maybe it's because Deshaun couldn't find him open. Kenny Stills didn't have nothing. He got targeted twice, but he didn't catch anything. Duke Johnson also was targeted, didn't catch anything. But Will Fuller, at the end of the day, got all the catches, but he didn't score either. Troxel did say this could be the end of Bill O'Brien. I agree.
Yeah, I believe so. He's definitely up on the hot seat all throughout this season because, like you mentioned there's a good key point. The fact that after the DeAndre Hopkins trade, you have Randall Cobb, you have Brandon Cooks, you have Kenny Stills. They couldn't get targeted that many times, and neither could they end up scoring. Only Will Fuller now having to take in majority of the work, but he himself couldn't even get a touchdown. Like, that just clearly shows you that, and again, it's not just DeAndre Hopkins, but it's the fact that the offensive line doesn't give enough time for Deshaun Watson to throw. That's a problem. And it's not that Deshaun Watson can't find his guys, but the fact that he's now running for his life, he's in danger, and he's trying to make plays happen. But the offensive line is not giving him the benefit to really make those plays happen. I mean, think about it. It would be different if you saw it as, Will Fuller comes up with that many catches, and let's say Will Fuller does score, versus also like if Brandon Cooks actually showed up, which I kind of doubt how this season is going to turn out for him. But if let's say he had six catches, close to about 100 yards, and he gets a score, it would have been a different tone. But that's also too where you're overworking Deshaun Watson too much to the point that he can't even make the plays happen.
Definitely. Houston's going to be in trouble next week. They got them Ravens and Lamar Jackson. You already know how he is.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Houston already. It's only week 1. Like I feel bad for Deshaun. Like he just got this major contract and he deserves it all, but his team's gonna kill him.
What's kind of interesting. I mean, it's so funny because even Troxel said, "Houston, we have a problem. Houston, you have so many problems. Okay, you have a whole city wide full of problems. Okay, you've got look. Let's be honest. You've got Houston, the Texans. Texans have a problem with their offensive line that's going to eventually kill Deshaun Watson at some point, and probably will happen this season. This is why I'm like, look, especially when it comes to fantasy football, I love to pick up a guy like Deshaun Watson, only if he had a healthy offensive line. That would be the only time, because I do believe Deshaun Watson can make it happen, but you can't force everything on his plate if he doesn't have an offensive line. 2, I just ended up finding out the Lakers beat the Rockets.
Yeah, they were.
When are you
They
gonna when are you gonna realize
right.
that this small ISO ball, this ball centric stuff, is only gonna last you so long, but it will never win you a championship.
Even though they did come back from 24, I give them that, but they still lost.
Yeah, they still lost because when their backs are against the wall, they now have to force themselves back into the game. Not gonna happen. It's it's not gonna happen.
And they don't
Doesn't win
have
you
no center
championships
either.
ever.
They don't have nobody big down low. Who was defending Anthony Davis? Not to get off topic with basketball, but who is defending Anthony Davis on that Rockets team? Nobody.
Oh, absolutely nobody. And here's the other thing. They don't even have the right size guys to really play up against Anthony Davis. I mean, let's
Right.
be honest. I mean, he'll see Russell Westbrook coming from a mile away. And even if he goes to drive into the basket, but that's because he's stuck to one thing. He can't shoot threes. That's the only problem. And then you have to force everything to James Harden, which James Harden can only take on so much pressure until then he's now nowhere to be found. He disappears in the game. And then you've got the Houston Astros. Okay. The asterisk that I love to call them. And I'm glad that the A's ended up beating them again. But also, too, it must hurt a lot when you don't have those buzzers, does it? Must hurt an awful lot. And now you're exposed. And this is one part. Houston as a city is so exposed. The overhypes, this to me it's almost like, you're selling false false hope. Up to this point. You got everybody sold on it. But then Houston now exposed themselves after the cheating scandal and after the censors, the buzzers, everything. The Rockets, they got themselves exposed the second they traded away Clint Capella. And now you don't even have a tall guy who could give you second chance shots, important rebounds, and to at least help defensively. Like, here's the thing. I guarantee you that if Capella played, he would have stopped LeBron in his tracks. We've seen
it would have been a difficult challenge.
It would have been a difficult challenge. We've seen this before. I mean, I loved seeing this kid, and nothing against LeBron, but the second that I saw that, I was like, who is this kid? You're blocking one of the best in basketball. But now that without having him, you're exposed to that. You're now the Smurfs of the NBA. And then you come down to the Houston Texans. Your offensive line is not the strongest. You're exposed, and Deshaun Watson's running for his life. To the point where
I don't know if the Texans look like the Sixers out there, Damien. I don't know. That's a bad analogy.
Oh no! Come on now. No, here's the thing. This is the difference. The Sixers just have too much size.
Hmm.
They're way too congested. Nobody has room to breathe. Okay, the Texans, yeah, they got the offensive line where it's not strong enough for Deshaun Watson to make plays, but at the same time, it's not to the point where it's like conjet. Because listen, if you had tall guys like the Sixers and at least guys that can block, then Deshaun would probably be a happy guy. But no, unfortunately, no way, no way.
Will Fuller did actually have a good game. If he can stay healthy throughout the season, he could be a good thing for Deshaun. But the next three games for Houston, the Ravens, Steelers, Vikings. Ugh.
Yeah, and you're talking about Ravens and Steelers that have real good defenses. Okay, they got real good pass rushers. They got real good secondary play. Yeah, that's not gonna yeah. You already know this is gonna be a tire fire season for the Houston Texans at this point. Even seeing this whole season unfold and unravel, it's not gonna look good for them.
Yeah, they might start off 0-4. They might get their win against Jacksonville. But yeah, Houston definitely has a lot of work to do. Um, if they want to get better, if not, they're gonna be getting a high draft pick. And if that's the case, they better go out and get somebody on this line to
Yeah.
help them out.
Oh yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Let's see what's up for the Chiefs. They play your Chargers next week. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be Chargers, Ravens, Patriots. Um, and then they play the Raiders as well. So that's going to be an interesting matchup against the Chargers next week. No, we'll see what they can do. What you think your team's going to do?
So I mean, this is going to be an interesting matchup because now you got an AFC West showdown in week 2, and again, you've already seen a preview of what this offense looks like now. Um, and again, I never ever sleep on Kansas City's offense. I mean, they will find ways to make it happen. And you're also talking about a team that was able to lock down guys like Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Now, I think the difference maker is here's what's also going to be the difference. Houston didn't have legitimate secondary play. They really, really did. Next week, you're going to be coming into a team with Chris Harris, Casey Hayward, Desmond King, Mike Davis. Yes, I understand everybody is all saying, well, there's no Derwin James. Okay, I get it. But you still got some corners and you do have some safety help. Now, will it be an easy game to play? Hell no, it won't. But I do see it being exciting. But hey, I'll be a happy camper if the Chargers still win against Kansas City. But you kind of already see how the defense is going to be played. I think it's going to be much better than the defense that was displayed tonight. And so it'll be an interesting matchup. Definitely a tough one that you know us as well on the network. Darian and I, we always just cringe every time when facing against Kansas City because you just already know the headliner at the end of the night.
I mean, cases definitely can be beat. It's going to be hard and tough because they got a guy like there like Patrick Mahomes and who can get rid of the ball, so fast. But
Yeah.
y'all do play Cincinnati. Cincinnati should be a win for y'all. Cincinnati still in rebuilding mode. See what y'all can do against Joe Burrow, against this rookie. Again, preseason might struggle a little bit only because for rookies they need that game speed and things of that nature. But we'll
Right.
see what Joe Burrows can do against the Chargers on Sunday. Um, any
Now,
final thoughts before we wrap up tonight, Jake?
oh, absolutely. Hey, folks, I mean, football is officially back. Now, it's going to be interesting with the fact of, like he mentioned, I mean, the fact that Joe Burrow, I mean, he's now the everyday starter, and you're talking about a quarterback who's had no OTAs, no preseasons. He's going to be playing kind of gunshot up to this point. And I understand with all these wide receivers that they ended up picking up. And yeah, again, it's questionable whether or not if AJ Green is going to stay healthy because it's kind of the same headliner over and over again every year. The fact that he gets hurt and then he misses out for the full season kind of hurts for the Bengals. But aside from that, there are a lot of headliners that we can look at from a lot of these teams. I mean, for instance, Tampa Bay. Can this work with Tom Brady now that they've got a mature quarterback that hopefully will not throw as many picks and at the same time elevate a lot of the guys around him? I mean, you have to think about you got to think about Leonard Fournette coming into this team. Rob Gronkowski. Now, look, I know a lot of speculations are around him, but if he looks healthy enough to play and he actually, serves a really, really good role, and not to mention, too, don't forget about Cameron Brate. I mean, the kid can play at his position as well, and I think they're going to utilize the two, and maybe O.J. Howard. I don't know. I just feel like they're going to, at some point, let go of O.J. Howard and probably get at least some complimentary picks in there. But Tampa Bay would be one big headliner. Good Lord. I can't wait to talk about this weekend, but why are people so sold on Dallas? Good Lord.
I don't know. It's like Dak is not.
People are so like, you are so sold on Dallas. I'm like, this is dumb. This is dumb. How many times do I have to say this? That, like, good Lord. Even if you have CeeDee Lamb or you have Michael Gallup, even if you have these offenses, what is your issues? You don't have secondary help. You lost Travis Frederick after retiring. So there's a hole in your offensive line. And again, we're not even sure how this defensive front line is really going to favor up. And this is, again, uncertainties, which is why that I have Dallas sitting at 8-8.
Yeah, you already know how I feel about Dallas. We not even going to talk about how I feel about
we ain't even going into there, but I know how you feel about it. But again, it's just like people are overhyping Dallas. I'm like, how? What is something that what is it that you see that I don't see?
Right,
Because I'm pretty sure that I'm already seeing it with 2020 vision, no pun intended. But a lot of this uncertainty with Dallas, it just makes no sense. But then at the same time, the biggest headliner is how many, and I don't want to sound like the bearer of bad news, but can we expect risky injuries by, like, let's say the first 6 weeks? Could we expect that at some point? Because this is also to a season with no preseason, no OTAs. These players are kind of exposed at this point. And that's kind of something that's going to be interesting to watch all throughout this season. So how teams and how players are really going to acclimate to this, I think is going to be probably one of the toughest challenges I would have ever seen in the NFL. It's not to say it can't be done, but I don't think this is kind of something that people should get used to be honest. Because you still got to have a preseason. You still got to give these kids time to really kind of showcase, to give them a sneak peek of what they could look like for the near future. You still got to have that. Because think about it. We're talking about Joe Burrow. What if Tua, right off the bat, started playing? Then he gets the hip injury. What do you think the headliner would be from that? The fact that preseasons, none of them, like no preseasons, kills.
Right.
And I think that would be huge. But I'd like to see how that would pan out for this season. And then the other thing, just because we had fans booing, let's find out in the next 2 days. The next 2 days, if we have any COVID results.
Right. I see they had the wristbands on to tell, that's pretty cool though. That technology is crazy how they have, those wristbands on and say, okay, who were you next to or how you got it. So
right.
There is something there. Now, Damien did ask the question, now that we know that the Texans and Chiefs looked without preseason games, how you think Sunday and Monday will go with other teams? I don't know. It may not go as smoothly as with the Chiefs.
I don't think it'll be as smoothly. I honestly feel like these teams and these players are going to be walking on thin ice, probably for the first 3-4 weeks, maybe, in order to really kind of get acclimated to the tackles. That's the only thing that I would say on, to point out that question. But I think again, week ones are always full of uncertainty. That's usually how it always is when the season starts. You don't even know exactly how the first week is going to pan out. But I think with no preseasons and all of that, give it about the first 4 weeks, and we'll see exactly how this pans out. But I feel like the teams and these players are going to be walking on thin ice for the first 4 weeks, just trying to get acclimated to the speed and pace of the game, and of course, getting acclimated to these tackles. We're not sure how this is going to pan out.
Right. So, see, Jake, before we go, tell them where they can find you at.
Alrighty, guys. Well, if you want to find more of me here on our hit network, the Spotlight Sports Network, tune in to the Snake Sports Talk Show every weekend from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Full of excitement, full of entertainment, and lots and lots of good sports content just to get you guys prepared for the next week ahead. I got a lot to talk about. I got the Stanley Cup, the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals to talk about in hockey. Also, too, the NBA playoffs currently going on. A lot of different speculations, and like I mentioned before when we started, football is officially back. I can't wait to start talking about NFL. And tune in too, Key, because I love doing this every year when football season comes back. My segment that I always put on every time in the middle of my show is Jake's prime predictions. You don't want to end up missing that. That is every single week. I love doing it, and I can't wait for this weekend to start the first official week of many weeks to come for the prime predictions.
Cool, cool, cool. And also, you can always find me. I'm always around in the building. But Instagram, Twitter, Key in the building. Also here on YouTube, Key in the building. Also, you can find me on the Spotlight Sports Network as well. Go check out the website. See all the latest news and posts up there, and also check out our merch as well. Also got some Key in the building merch as well as the Snake hats, shirts, and masks. Go over there and check it out. So I do appreciate y'all for joining us tonight and hanging out, recapping the game a little bit. Troxel, Gridiron, Damien, D as well, Connor. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'm always in the building. Y'all can always find me. Until another video, we out.